Yeah, coming.
Whatever, we are here.
Hello, welcome.
Yes, I see.
Please, Professor Lakey, accept yourself as a panelist. I'm upgrading you.
Kelechi Friday. Kelechi Friday.
You have the way of reaching out. I've promoted him several times to become a panelist.
Oh, okay.
He doesn't know how to accept it as a session.
Hello, sir. Can you accept the request to be allowing you to talk to accept to be a partner?
It doesn't matter. She just accept that.
You need to accept.
Yes.
Without count.
No, he's a panelist.
So, but the panelist is number 3 here, number 2, right? So we have number 1 person. Maybe as you're doing the technical.
Yes, the chairman of the.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
This chairman entered as an attendee.
Okay.
So I'm promoting him to become a panelist, but he's not accepting. This is an attendee here. I'm promoting him to become a panelist.
Can you say this? Yes, I can. So you have to accept
Yeah, you should not accept.
and the front of the screen.
It's from-
There's a front of the screen that has to be accepted.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir. Can you hear me, sir? Hello, sir. I think he's having issues.
Okay.
No, he's not the one.
He's not the one, yes.
This is the best we're talking about. Yeah. You become a panelist. It's not accepted. Even if you use your name, that's what I'm saying. It's here as an attendee. Or you just have to accept yes.
So when can it?
Please, let's start. So, okay, go ahead.
So the problem is to reach them.
Yeah, if you are present.
Well, I can share if you want me to share. Well, is there any, there's nothing particular.
About
I've shared like two.
Alright, yeah, so
Yes, yeah, that's it.
Okay.
It's not the panelists. Let's wait for him to. Come back down, please, yeah?
Adam,
Yeah, come back down, please, yeah? Yes, I do. Okay. Okay. I think
alright, we can start.
That was it for Kelechi.
He's not here. So maybe we can start.
Since the chairman of the panel is here, we can actually.
Yes, Salam. Okay.
Hi, Prof, can you hear us?
Take this screen, please.
Yeah.
Yes, Prof, can you hear us, sir? Yes, he can unmute himself. Okay. Yes, Prof, can you hear us?
Hello, I can hear you. I don't know whether you are hearing me. That's the issue.
Yes, we
Can
can
you
now
hear
hear
me?
you. Yes, we can now hear you, sir. So you can take over the panel, sir. You are the chairman.
Okay,
of the-
let's start. Let's just start. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay,
Yeah, I think let's start. Yeah, thank you very much. I want to welcome all of us to this. I'm Professor Leke Oduwaye from the University of Lagos. And the organizers are Joy Oyiza Obadoba from the University of Lagos and Adams Dala Baba and Oludayo Otaro from Federal Polytechnic Ida. We have five people represented. Names of the presenters, the organizers will give details of the presenters. We have Chigozie Daniel Ago from University of Nigeria, that is Nsukka or Enugu now. We don't know.
I'm here.
And the Kelechi second person, Kelechi Friday Nwocha. The third person is Joy Oyiza, one of the panelists of Obadoba from University of Lagos. And the fourth person is Bankole Turai, also from the University of Lagos. So that's by the way of introduction of myself and the organizers and the presenters. I think the organizers can take over from there. The organizers can take over because I think we spent like 20 minutes trying to link up with ourselves. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Dr. Adams, can you hear us? Okay, so we plan to have 10 minutes for each presenter, and so that it will give us sufficient time for discussion. And we have three presenters presently here. We have Chigozie Daniel, who will be presenting on oppressing the migrants, customary land practices and housing crisis in southeastern Nigeria. We also have another presentation. We hope he's going to join us from Kelechi Friday from the University of Maiduguri. And his presentation is on From Conflict to Habitat, examining the development of squatter settlements in Maiduguri, capital city, in the context of Boko Haram insurgency. And then we move to urban nexus, finding a way through the maze of Abuja's housing options for the low-income group. And then our fourth presentation is from Bankole Ture, and he's presenting on Bora and Beyond. He's going to explain to us what it means, a complex mosaic of respect, money, and gendered land access in northwest of Sierra Leone. So this is a diverse panel from West Africa. So the theme for the panel is urban housing justice, class, livelihood, and livability in African cities. So we are like, this is the last panel for this session, and we hope that by the end of the day, we'll be able to understand some of the nuances in the justice in housing, justice on land, the class, the livability, and the identity of African cities in crisis. So without wasting much of our time, I'm going to be very specific. So by 10 minutes, we're going to round you off, and then, so I call on the first presenter. No other particular order, if you don't mind. All right, so I call on the Chigoziem Daniel for the presentation.
I'm happy to be here. So, okay, I am looking at a topic. Migrants, that's the name of the slide. I think she has it. But I'm looking at the topic I titled, yes, that oppressing the migrants, customary land practices and housing crisis in southeastern Nigeria. This is a work in progress. In fact, it's actually a proposed research topic for graduate school that I've not even started. However, it's something I really want to interrogate. So land in southeastern Nigeria from pre-colonial times was not just a means of subsistence, but an embodiment. Next slide, please. But an embodiment. Okay. Land in southeastern Nigeria is not just a means of subsistence, but an embodiment of the goddess Allah. So in the pre-colonial times, land was not really vested in southeastern Nigeria, the main Igbo homeland. Its land is not, private ownership is rare. Instead, it's communally owned, and it comes from the belief that land belongs to the living and the dead. So nobody owns land. Nobody can claim Igbo land. In those days, to own land. Families own land. When you want to build a house, you get land. And you don't own the land here, you make custodian. So when you die, you pass it over. You don't own it. So the dead own it, the living own it, even the unborn, they own it. However, the economic motive of the British colonialists was one that required them to own lands. Hence, they began to set up laws that would aid them to gain lands. And some of the lands, the laws they brought in was the 1900 Land Proclamation or Ordinance, 1916 Niger Land Transfer Act, and the 1917 Public Land Acquisition Act. So by the virtue of doing this, they created private land ownership in Igbo land for the first time in several parts of Nigeria. And with that emergence of colonialism, we started to see a rise of urban centers. And colonial settlements and areas soon emerged as an urban center. Lagos emerged as an urban center. Somewhere like Onitsha in southeastern Nigeria emerged as an urban, as a colonial settlement. Emerged as an urban center, being a colonial settlement. And one thing about it is that it started to attract migrants to those areas. And those migrants, or these migrants rather, they also needed lands like the British to live economic and other purposes. Now, my statement of problem is that the status of land, like I said, this is a work in progress, right? So there are certain part of it I just took out and tried to make sense of what I have. The status of land has evolved over the years, and in the course of this evolution, conflict situations based on land has also evolved, and it has given rise to the concept of urban childhood in Igbo. So this research tends to interrogate the urban childhood, syndrome concept and its effects on migrants and housing. Next slide. Okay. All right. So, aims. My aim for this research is for this particular company's position is to document or to talk about the practice of land protectors. That's your one-year child and the complete situation, the cost, and also examine the impact of these practices on migrants and housing. What are the dangers that it is causing the people in southeastern Nigeria? For my methodology, I have always done on qualitative method of historical research, being a historian, and I drew my data from oral interviews and secondary sources. So your one in Chicago. Some time ago, I was, I'm there. This is where I am. So some time ago, I was listening to a podcast on YouTube by Nedu Wazobi at the Honest Bunch, and they invited this guy, Leo da Silva. And I was shocked to realize that this one in Chicago is also existing in Lagos, the Omonile. When I asked people what is the Omonile, they said Omonile means son of the soil. Right? And in Igbo land, we call them Obonyo Chago, the age grades, they protect, I call them land protectors, just my own, giving them an English name. Their jobs are, as in Igbo land, their jobs, they just have one job. Once you are a migrant and you buy land, they will come for you. Once you want to build a house, you want to renovate an existing one, they will come for you. You must pay them or they will cause you discomfort. There is no two ways about it. Now, after the colonial period, people are still migrating to urban centers. And it has become custom for the locals in these areas that whenever a migrant wants to buy a piece of land, he must pay a token to those village youths. And this is causing serious issues. And the worst scenario here is that we have numerous cases of splinter groups among these land protectors, and you end up settling each and every one of them. However, I am not dwelling on Yoruba, but when I was listening to the Leo da Silva and the persons I asked questions, I got to realize that in Lagos, for example, the Omonile is not like as it is in that's the one in Chicago and the Omonile differ because allegedly, please, you're moving the slides. Allegedly here, they share themselves in groups. So Sulu really has its own, Banana Island has its own, the guy lives in Banana Island. And other Pinnock has, so once you move to those areas, you must settle this way. So it's not even a problem that is looking at, that is facing just southeastern Nigeria, but I think at least southwest and southeast, it's there. However, I'm looking at southeast. So this immigrant or this migrant must pay each group until he pays them all. And the prices are not fixed. They could range from 25,000 naira to about 150,000 naira. And you must make this payment if you are renovating. And don't forget that you pay this group, another group will come. You pay this group, another group will come. And it seems to say nobody is doing anything about it. You can't even say, oh, you want to call the police. They will just be causing you stupid discomfort, delaying your job. They could slash your tires today, take the tools of the workmen the next day. They could come there to fight. They will just be causing you one issue or the other until you're done paying them. Now, what are the consequences of those guys? I'm rushing. First of all, they are leading to conflict situations. I came home earlier this year to hear about about our neighbor who was trying to renovate his restaurant and his head was broken. They beat him until he broke his head. What was his crime? That he said he wasn't going to pay. That where he is not even, that he doesn't even own the land, he's renting the house. But just for him to do some renovation, they beat him up. Serious beating. Yeah, they said he had to be hospitalized. And this thing, it's everywhere. There's also an aspect of it that I'm not looking at. The issue of land sales in southeastern Nigeria, where you buy a piece of land, the family that sold it to you will sell it to another person. Before you know what, I know of a place in Ugwaju where a piece of land was sold over 10 times. And about the particular young, sorry, I'm digressing, but there's also this particular young man that sold this piece of land, squandered the money, sold it again, used the money to build a house on the land for himself and buried his mother there. So these are some of the, they are related to the urban child, but I wanted to, separate them for the purpose of this presentation. So they cause conflict situations, lots of conflict situations, and they've led to high housing costs. Why? Because when a migrant gets to buy a house, and you buy a land, for him to build, he's going to pay these people, and he knows that any day he wants to renovate, he's going to pay these people. So what It has led to what we call in Igbo land, Igorji. You meet a landlord who I want to park into your apartment, he will charge you for Kulanat money. And you're going to give it to him, or you are not entering his house. It's not lawyer's agreement. That one is different. It's not caution fee. It's a Kulanot fee. You have to pay him for that. It's a one-off payment. You subsequently you won't pay. And then another challenge we have with the Obonichagu is slum proliferation, because people, when you check, the long process of moving with your Obonichagu, you just decide not to renovate your house. Some people take that decision. I mean, 2 minutes. Some people take that decision that they, you know what, we're no longer going to renovate this land. Let the house stay that way. Because they don't want to pass through the stress of a one HRG. Because even imagine a scenario where you get to run into 10 different groups and you're giving each of them 80,000 naira. Probably the cost of what you want to do is around 500,000. And then you see yourself spending about 800,000 naira on nothing. So my conclusion and recommendation is that the idea of a one HRG is a consequence of capitalist greed, which has over the years flourished as a result of government ineptitude and has been aided by Nigeria's porous legal system. If you have a land case in Nigeria, believe me, you get ready to spend a minimum of 10 years and above. If you are lucky, you could get less, but standard, you're going 10, 15 years. It will take your time. And based on the research efforts of the researcher, the paper recommends government regularization of customary payment. And now, this study encourages further research, especially to juxtapose the one HRG concept and Niger Delta militancy. Because why I am saying this is because for the Niger Delta militants, you are coming to take their oil. Therefore, you have to pay them or they cause you problems. They could kidnap the expatriate, they do a lot of things. Now, for the one HRG, their challenge is you are coming to their homes to take their lands, to buy their lands. Therefore, for you to build on it, for you to renovate it, you must pay them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Daniel. Dr. Daniel. All right. So we quickly move to the next presenter. We quickly move to the next presenter. Bankole Theodore.
Okay, by way of introduction, while they are setting it up, I am Bankole Theodore today. I use the camera is on my laptop. Okay. So I don't know if that thing is working. Okay, I am Bankole Theodore today. I'm a Sierra Leonean, a PhD candidate with the Center for Housing and Sustainable Development here at the University of Lagos. I'm part of the TUB Unilab Urban Lab project that's funded by the DAD. And so this is part of my larger research. My larger PhD research basically is on women's access to land for sustainable livelihood. I'm looking at the tenorial conflict in the peri-urban area, how they affect women access to land. And so this is just one of the issues that I highlighted during the course of my data gathering in community that's emerging. When we are finding one way to solve issues of women access, other ways are emerging in the process. Okay, so basically, the topic is Bora and beyond. I'm trying to look at how the complexity of Bora technically is a traditional word that's been used in almost half of the ethnic groups in the Northwest. And it's a cash payment that's replacing traditional obligation. And so you find the word Bora amongst almost half of tribes in the Northwest. And it's not just ingrained in when you want to access land, but it's also something they institute in part of their traditional exercises. When you're going to seek a woman's hand in marriage, they ask you to pay Bora. And so when you want to ask a favor, or you want to visit the elders or chiefs of a community, you have to give them Bora. It's like a sort of a cash payment or token. There is no amount or limitation to it, but it's becoming something that's been institutionalized. And so to be able to understand what Bora basically is that it's a word in local palace that's used by various ethnic groups. Slide is now moving forward. By various ethnic groups in the Northwest specifically. It's not too common in the South and Southeast because the term in itself has its origin from one of our local tribes, they call them Feminists, and they are the one who often use the word Bora, and it becomes common across other tribes in the Northwest. It's basically a small cash token that strangers and women pay when they want to use land. And they're paying that amount for them to be able to be put on notice that the land no belongs to you. You're only using it for a particular purpose. And this token shows that this token is like the relationship that bonds the landowner versus the land user when they want to give access to land. And this is strictly restricted to migrants and as well as women from non-land owning family. And it's now becoming a norm, part of our customs, particularly in the Northwest. Everywhere you go when you want to access land, when either you're a stranger or a migrant or from minority groups like women or youth, you have to be able to give Bora to either the chiefs or the land owning family. And this is becoming something that they refer to as expect money, and it has no cost. There is no amount that it ties to, and it's creating a lot of problem when it comes to communities where land is scarce and the demand for it is increasing, particularly those communities that are moving towards the peri-urban settlements where land is being commodified and there is some cash economy into the land. And so it becomes the highest bidder who gives token will have access to land for agricultural purposes or other land-related activities. And so the question here is whether this process is an empowerment or an exploitation, whether Bora presents an opportunity for women's agency or a contribution to their further marginalizing them within the land governance structure. In a nutshell, Sierra Leone operates a dual tenure system as a customary and the statutory. Almost 90% of our lands are in the statutory, are in the customary, in custody of the chiefs, and the land belongs to the families. And the statutory, which constitutes mostly our capital city, is run by a statutory law. So when it comes to land access, majority of our lands are in customary setting. And in this customary setting, most of these lands do not have any formal title or land documentation because they have been operated and managed. And the governance structure around there is mostly an unwritten laws. And so I basically try to specifically do a biographic survey. And the biographic survey as a method was purposively for women, to be able to understand the various categories of women and how they benefit and constrain to land access. Because when we talk about women in the African setting, they are not a homogeneous group. Women have diversity. So the way how women who are married compared to a single woman, a migrant woman, and woman who comes from a land-owning family, and as well as women who are not from a land-owning family, the way they interface and relate with land is way, way different. And so is it for women who are divorced or separated, married women and single women. So the dynamics when it comes to access to land varies for all of these women. So I conducted a biographic survey to be able to understand these varieties of women, both from the high income and low income, and to understand to what degree some women benefit from land as a result of this barrier of paying Bora or token, and to what extent they are constrained when it comes to land. And so key of the findings from this research is that what they refer to as Bora, that is, in other words, respect money, is now creating more inequality when it comes to land access. Because some of the token that is expected for women for them to pay to access land, it can be as small, but that small is so huge for women to be able to generate, to pay and be able to access land for their own basic subsistence farming activities. And so it makes women struggle to compete with men when it comes to accessing land because they have more of the financial resources. And it's creating marginalization for women when it comes to agricultural activities because there are some communities where land is scarce. And so during the dry season, for instance, the limited lands that have that are fertile becomes an hotspot and it becomes the highest bidder takes the day. And so addressing this this have a potential to negatively impact on women equitable access to land. And so therefore, it's important for us to be able to balance this concept of respect for tradition and then trying to ensure that women access to land is at the center of our activities. And so few of the conclusions I'll make is that we need to be able to actually advocate for and actively participate in revising customary land tenure system to guarantee women's equal rights to land ownership and inheritance. And of course, we have to be able to invest in education and awareness through educating community, particularly men, about the importance of secure land rights for women and the benefit of equitable land access for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Banko. Please can we confirm if Mr. Senate is not? Okay. All right, so I have a presentation as well, and
I did last person.
no,
Oh, sure.
he's not around. The third presenter is not around. So I will go next, and so somebody I got too much.
Is it?
I don't spend too much time.
Okay.
Alright.
Hello, Joy.
Okay, my name is Joy
I can hear you.
Badaba, and I will be presenting a topic titled Urban Nexus, Finding a Way Through the Maze in Abuja Housing Options for Low-Income or Low-Income Groups. I'm a PhD candidate at the Center for Housing and Sustainable Development at the University of Lagos. So this panel is also supported by the BITS Suburban Lab, the tripartite program run by the University of Witwatersrand in South Africa, Technical University Berlin, and the University of Lagos, Nigeria. And so my presentation outline, I'll give a brief background of Abuja urbanization, the housing landscape, the challenges for low-income groups, the success stories so far, and then the future outcomes. And so this is also a part of my ongoing study from a larger work, and looking at how low-income earners gain access to housing in Abuja. Looking at it based on the fact that there's a lot of contestation on housing, who owns the right to the city, who has rights to housing. And we've come to understand that Abuja is urbanizing. Growth in African cities is also increasing, according to the World Health Organization, UN Habitat. Several studies shows that the population of African cities is going to increase to 2.8 billion by 2050. The high rate of urbanization in Abuja High rate of urbanization, there is a high living cost. So we're talking about housing, urbanization, injustice, and the question is access to housing. Can the low-income earners be excluded from the city? Do we think the low-income earners don't deserve to live in the city? They don't deserve the right to sleep even a good night, have a good night rest within the city for just one night. And so this court gives us a right to the question, who actually has a right to housing? Is housing exclusive or is it just inclusive? Is it inclusive for certain set of people? Is it exclusive for certain set of people? And so these studies, I looked at the history of cities in Nigeria. Sorry, I didn't take the rest of the African cities. I took far back to the 16th century. So when we hear housing in Nigeria, we think housing is a current problem, but it's not a problem of today. It's been there, it's been existing. And we've had houses that was inclusive, designs of cities that were inclusive. And so from this image, you see this is the Benin Wall. Long before China Wall existed, the Benin Wall already existed in the 10th century, in the 10th AD. So 10,000 AD, 1000 AD, Benin Wall existed. And so this is a picture I found online by a Dutch physician, and he documented what the city looked like. From this picture, I'm not able to tell who is poor and who is rich, but this tells us that this was a concentric city that was designed and everybody was inclusive within the city. So far back before the 1900s, when we started hearing of Nigeria, we had the Western powerful kingdoms such as the Oyo Empire, we had the El Kanem Bonu Empire, we had the Igbo Kingdom of Onitsha and Southeast and House of Fulani kingdoms. Like you heard from my colleague, talked about Igbo, the things happening in the Southeast and also in Sierra Leone, and the situation is no different. So we've had a history from time. So the current landscape, currently in Abuja, there is a wide range of housing types, but with different high costs. So low-income earners are not able to access housing because the market is too high. Affordable housing options are scarce and often lack basic amenities. The president is currently having the 3,000 housing estate for the mass housing as it's designed, 3,000, but only 900 of the total units is allocated for low-income earners, and the price is also outrageous. And then the living cost as well is increasing. And so many people have come to the time to say that Abuja is not for the rich, Abuja is a no man's land, but in reality, it's not. So everybody still lives within the city and nobody is excluded. Besides the Constitution, Section 43 of the Nigerian Constitution, that now every Nigerian, everybody to own a piece of property in any part of the country. The international policy supports housing for everyone. And so in terms of government policy, there are various housing policies. We have the mass housing policy, but they fall short of, they are not implemented due to funding or implementation issues and corruption as well. Importance of equity in policy formulation and implementation for effective housing solution. And so the housing policy still suggests and encourage that every Nigerian should have a house. In fact, the president said 30% of income. But however, by the time you find out what currently exists is that there is a lack of governance network. So there are no, there is a power struggle. There is no connectivity between who owns the land, the low income earners, the rich, the poor, the government. Everybody works in silos. So the methodology I adopted was a mixed methodology because I needed to understand how this contestation of policy is shaping the city. And then I looked at, I had some interviews, focus group discussion and questionnaires, just as some pictures from the field. And then what we found out, challenges for the low-income earner, is that there are two categories of challenges. We have the economic barriers and the social barriers. So there's a complex land ownership issues and there's bureaucratic delays. Complex in the sense that low-income earners are not able to even rent. And there is also discrimination and social exclusion. There's also a systemic gentrification where people have land, they are made to sell their house and then bought again over by another rich man. And so it's a market that's somehow they try to make the poor live to the extreme suburb. And so this is just a picture of what the current Abuja. So when I mean Abuja, I mean the Abuja municipal capital, because Abaji, Wari area council are all part of the FCT, but this is Abuja, the municipal area council. It's divided into 5 phases, and these brown portions you can see are where low-income earners are actually living within the city currently in the whole of the city design. And so the key findings, three main things came to mind. So there is a village within the city. So there's this thing here. It's in every city. If you go to Mabushi, it's there. If you go to Garki, it's there. If you go to Wuse, it's there. If you go to Apo, it's there. If you go to Asoko, this is there. And there's also a disparity between income versus rent and the society. And we're looking at the justice system, and this is what's available. This is a city living side by side, Koroduma Estate, and this is a house, and just behind the fence is this. And they are not informal workers, they are formal workers, government employees. And so I found this very interesting because the government employees and the income level and versus the rent they pay are not commensurate. And so some of the success stories, this is most of the housing designs, all mass housing look like with these conical shapes. The story is that the government and NGOs are doing something, especially the Abuja mass housing scheme, but it's not successful, but it's there. And there's need to ensure that there's equity in project allocation. And so when they design houses, they still say low, middle, and high income, but project. So that's why they are placed, they are inbred, that there's a problem, even though it's called success story. And then this commodifying of architectural design as mass housing design, where the houses designed for low income earners are designed with so much elaborate design that at the end of the day become unaffordable to the actual target. And so we'll conclude by saying just a few that there is a need to focus on public investment in housing. People have said that housing is not a government responsibility, it's a good people should be able to afford. However, government has a part to play because it defines the shape of the city, defines the economy of the city. And then there's the need to redefine the low-income housing, what we call social housing. What does it really mean to us? It has to be defined. There's need to enhance inclusivity in the housing designs that we have. We believe that if this is done, the call to action will be that there is a need for progressive and transparent approach to managing real in big letters. Because what we call real estate market is just people scamming people to get accommodation. That's the main business that goes on in Abuja. And for future outlook, can I ask this question? Can housing be monopolized? I think that should be a call for all of us. I don't know. I'm looking at it from my own perspective because the research is giving rise to other questions. So is it that housing should be owned by just the rich and the poor should do away with it, or it should just be a monopoly market? So what are the calls? So comments are welcome, and this is ongoing as we progress. Thank you very much.
Is the chair still there with us? Yeah, please.
So is Mr. Kelechi online now? No? All right, so we have come to the end of the presentation, and then we'll now give room for questions. But before then, we'll go back to the online guest. The chair is online, and the co-convener is also online.
I guess Dr.
That's even Dio too. Yeah.
Just allow to talk.
Allow.
Allow Jared. No.
You have to unmute your mic. So we go online to take comments and questions, and then we come back to the house on questions. Thank you.
Ask them to unmute.
Please unmute your mic so that you can contribute.
Yeah.
We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
We can hear you. You can unmute
Yeah.
your mic and
It's good now.
We can hear you now.
Hello.
Hi, we can hear you, Prof.
Yeah, we can hear. We can hear him.
so we're waiting for comments from online guests, and I will take questions. From
Yeah, so
Okay, so
maybe
let's
we
take the
should start.
questions and then.
Okay. So I have a few questions for all of you. My friend that was looking at oppressing the migrants, customary land practices and housing crisis um, in southeastern Nigeria. I think that what you want to do is to look at how the tension that's arising as a result of the confliction of both traditional land tenure system and the modern land tenure system, and the role of perhaps non-state actors in the entire process. You were also talking about what's the name of that concept? Urbanic childhood. So I was like, are they legitimate government sanctioned agency or body recognized by the institution of the state, like the police? You know, how are they organized? And what claim do they lay in trying to justify the fact that they own the land? Is it in all parts of Southeast, so all the states in Southeast Nigeria that they say is dominant? And so how do they, what's the kind of relation that exists between them and the chief? Because we know, I teach, land and labor in African history. So we know that the chiefs are the custodian, nominally of land, isn't it?
Yes.
But by the Land Use Act of 1978, there was in practice, government takeover of that land. So how do you reconcile this? So you just have to know that. But you said most importantly that this is a graduate school proposal you are developing. And so if it is so, I expect that you have to do more reading of the literature. So are there already existing Western literature in this particular phenomenon that you are looking at?
Yes.
If there are, what is the point of convergence? Are they contestation? Are they point of convergence or divergence? So what is the debate, that exists so far, and in which you are contributing to?
Right.
So that's what, and again, it's a theoretical framework we are using to back up this. You don't not necessarily need to answer me now, but I am saying that this is the way you should begin to think around it. Joy, of course, that I'm interested, and I've always been interested in what you are doing. And it's revealing to see what you are finding in Abuja, and that's the reality. I'm conversant with Abuja. That's the reality we find. So what do we have to do to, housing should be something that everybody, it should be a right? It's social justice right.
That is what they told you.
Yeah, yes, but
Because I will come from the aspect of land information management.
oh, okay. Well, government mass housing, structure that we have in Abuja, why are they not? What's the problem with them? So what's actually wrong with them? And the real estate people that you talked about, that's a fact too. I know people, that right now EFCC, an Igala person, someone that he even contested in the last governorship election in Kogi State, but the police has declared him wanted. because he took money through his real estate business. So what do we need to do? What kind of investment are we saying? Do you see a government approach, an investment-led approach as a solution to addressing the housing deficit that we are facing? Or you see more or less a social approach, a socialized approach from the government, which means mass government, mass housing or proper housing estates that we have in local and other places. So what's your take? What do you think? Do you see that as a solution to the housing crisis?
Take one more.
I would have loved to start by asking you this question, but maybe to find a way to bring that in. Whether the picture you showed us, that housing estate, whether it is government owned
Yes.
or individual owned. If it is government owned, you will know that by the design, it is designed for a certain class of people. And I have not been there, I don't know. Then, but one thing I know, you asked the questions. Can housing be monopolized? In a way, from what I know, I would say yes, because when you are now building for a particular group of people, they are the only people that can have access to that housing. So to them, it's a monopoly. So when you're now beginning to think about housing as a business, maybe real estate, then you now look at, if I am building to make money as a business, what class of people will I build for so that I can recoup my investment as soon as possible? The days has gone when people are now talking about the return on investment of 30 or 50 years. They're now looking at 10 years. So if you have no money now, maybe you collect money from the bank and want to use it to build house. Then, and maybe you have a kind of 30 years tenure for the loan. Some people will want to build that house and rent it to, in fact, they will want to build the house to the people that they can get the money from them within 10 years. So that the next 20 years will be for their profit. So when you look at all these factors, they are the things that affect the housing delivery. It is not only in Abuja, it is everywhere. But your concentration is in Abuja. Then I want to come to you, my brother. I happen to come from the southeast, and I'm a surveyor, so I know what is happening in the land. And I know you say it is an ongoing project, like my brother suggested. In geography, we do what we call reconnaissance visits. Yeah. If you have a concept, you now begin to query, question all those ideas, so that it will now help you to form what you want to write about. So if you look at where you start, and I know there were times in Igbo land, Igbo do not sell land, they just give you land. And you do a kind of every year, you just pay something. It's not even money, just bring something like a cola, just to show that this land does not belong to me. But they will never ask you to leave the land. You will remain there. So at the time, there is this transition, just like what you presented the other day. So you will see a kind of transition from what that is not the normal norm, maybe something that is borrowed. So that is what you will find out. This idea of selling land, where did it come from? How did it come about? Then it is the selling of the land that now come about this emergence of all this group of people that you're talking about. And it is not only related to your place. But I'm not comfortable with the use of Southeast. It's too big for you, the whole of Southeast, because I know land is not land of states now. Yeah. So as a surveyor, we only have license to practice within Anambra State, not within Ebonyi. And in Anambra State, these people you call Obone Echago, I don't know whether it's in Ebonyi that they use Obone Echago. In Anambra State, we call them under warfare. People that survey the land, or people that look after the land. In Abia State, my father has a house in Aba. We call them Ndimala, the owners of the land. You see the name differs. So now that you have used Obone Echago, so try to concentrate this work on that area that these people are known as Obone Echago. You understand? So that you do not generalize everything and now use specific to now explain. You will find it will not be too bad for you. And for you, okay, for all of you, let me put it there. So just pick the one that is related to you. your presentation seems that you are researching what you know, what you're conversant with, something you grow up with, or something you grow to meet. So don't look at it from your own point of view.
Positionality.
Yes, because it is look bias. So question the system, query people, interview, present it from the point of view of reality of the people, whether they agree with what you think or not. Let it be the generality of the people you interview or you query it, presented it this way, and I think it will be better. Thank you very much. There's no question.
Can we take these three and then we'll come back for another round of questions?
Thank you. I actually want to, I want to actually open up some way in which you can expand your research. I happen to work in Africa for like 4 years, and I lived in, I was living at Agwangede, and between Agwangede, Peseli, and 1,000 units, there are some areas that looks very urban, semi-urban, and very, very rural. Now, the palace of the king of the Kuje itself is in Agwangede, just the entrance beside the Erano police station. Now, when I got to that place, I entered at night. And when I got to that place, because the person was telling me palace. My notion of palace, when I got to that place, I was lost because it doesn't even look like someone is living there. Yes, it looks so abandoned, so unkept. And I discovered that even this place you showed us, in this place, I want you now to understand that. You see this 1,000 units in Lube federal housing that you showed in this place. The government has already sold the land. You may not know. They sold the land. They gave them plan of what you must build on that land. So that housing you are seeing is individual owned property. My boss has a house in that place. But nobody knows. They thought it was the federal government that was building those projects. No. The land was for federal government. They sold the land, but they gave it out to people based on, they call it highest bidder. I don't know how they, like a auction. So that was what they did, and it wasn't publicized. That's one. Now, two, I want you to look at the aspect of the developers. And I'll give you an instance of the role of the developers in Abuja. I worked with a very rich man in Abuja when I was working. I will not mention his name. But when he was about to build his house, he could not get the land in a place he wants to stay in Abuja, which is what's it called? Guaripa. Now, what he did was he bought the house, gave it to developers to build the structure he wants on top of that house. But nobody knows that those things exist in Abuja. So look at the role of the developers in urban housing, because they played a lot of role in making housing become unaffordable for people. So look at that too. Now, in the last aspect, I'm sorry I couldn't contribute to your paper because I wasn't here. In the last aspect of your paper is the question of monopolization of housing. With the situation of things in Nigeria, you and I know that it is very difficult. And I will give you an instance with what is happening in Ibadan. There is a new housing project that the governor of Oyo State is doing. And it's along the Ikire Expressway. It's a police estate so far. They name it after the IG, that it's for police officers, that the police officers should have access to housing in that place. Before they fix the entrance of that gate as an housing, the land in that area was less than 200,000. But immediately they put the gate and the entrance to showcase that an housing is coming to this place, land automatically became millions and millions in that region. So now, what is the relationship between entitled, in quotes, well-established named area or names of people, individuals associated with land, and how does it affect the sales of land over time? Thank you.
I want to go.
Okay, I can go. Okay,
Yeah.
When we start with so you asked me if there are established, recognized.
Yeah, yes.
So I can never call the Ogoni travel to be recognized by the government, right? I get from my experience, my own research, they're not recognized by the government. However, they continue to cause discomfort, and some of them are in relationship. They have a relationship with their chiefs. Many of them have a relationship with their chiefs, and so now I've heard cases of where now you don't need to pay them again. You pay the chief, then the chief settles his voice. So it's more or less like, this is my own opinion or trying to gain meaning from it. It's more or less like, okay, if you don't pay the chief, you get a message from the voice. But if you pay the chief, the voice will leave you alone. However, there are places where you must pay them. You don't go to pay the chief. You must pay them. They will come for you to pay them.
So does this happen after you have bought your land from?
Yes.
From the state, because of the local government, and you have your C of O, and then you want to develop it, and they come and say, no, you have to give me 1 million. So what legitimacy are they? Because I have my title, for instance, I have my papers that this land has been sold to me, certified. My lawyers have certified it, and then I want to develop it. I've contracted to a builder, to a developer to come and build for me. So the Ogono will now come and say, no, Dr. Dan, you now have to give me 2 million because you are this, you are that.
Yeah, remember, okay.
Maybe I told him to go and ask questions because I deal with land.
So
if you are a real estate,
yeah.
in our own side we call real estate, maybe Abuja may be calling land developers, I don't know. And I have the money, I can buy the land.
Yes.
Then register, survey the land, partition the land, register the land. Then I will now go and settle the villagers that sold the land to me. Me, the owner of the real estate will now settle them. Then I will now start a kind of phase or clear the place that is my own. Based on that partition, I will now begin to sell the land partition by partition, like you mentioned about the one in Abuja. So the people, all the money that the people will pay, I have paid the money. So I will not add the money to their own. They will not pay me the money. In that scenario, nobody will disturb me. But assuming I bought from the villager,
yes,
you understand, and I want to now develop, I will pay developmental fee. I don't know. That is why I say you should stop, because in my place,
I get your concern.
in my place, it is linked to the village. The money you will pay, the villagers will have a share. The youth that will collect the money have their own share. Those people that are monitoring the environment have their own share. So even if you arrest them, tomorrow they will release them because the community is aware of their activities.
So it's for your own good, because you are using it for gradual application. Because the reviewers are people who have never been to your village. So you need to communicate the concepts or the phenomena you are studying in the very plain language that they will understand and know what you are actually investigating. You don't need to answer me. I'm just trying.
I just pray that God will help me, because to interrogate these people,
it is difficult. It's difficult. Even the little one I've done is very difficult.
All right, so maybe we move forward and then we can continue this conversation, but maybe as a way to answer some of the questions that has been raised. You talked about, can we have investment-led approach?
Yes.
So, like I mentioned, this is just a part of the larger work. Yes, investment-led approach is very possibly part of the findings. In fact, studies shows that there are over 28 million housing deficits. And this housing deficit is not with census. I put it in quotes because there is no census data for housing. So we are not even sure of what we call deficit. But then there are also abandoned houses that are fully completed, furnished, but nobody lives in them. I counted 1,550 empty apartments, duplexes, bungalows in different estates. So unit by unit, I counted 150 units. And so this 1,500 housing. So if I'm able to count, and that's not the entire city, but this is just within the area which I covered. And that brings us to the idea that there is corruption. Like he mentioned, FHA sold the land and then allowed people to build. These were also raised from the study. However, because I'm trying to inquire into justice and Abuja, why that's the choice of choosing Abuja is because the city was designed in the first place to solve the problem that Lagos already had. So in a form and in a way, the master plan had tried to find a way that everybody can live. And the city welcomed everybody. It gave plan for the low, the middle, and the high. In fact, Abuja is not even an economic city. It's now that it is transforming into an economic town, into a contemporary town. It's a first of all a civil service city. They are just government workers, and then in government work, you expect that there will be level 1 to level 9 who are low income earners. So concept of justice also by design talks about democracy, equity, and fairness. So to be fair to ourselves and to our society, that's why I asked the question, because these are questions and thoughts that are being raised while I'm doing my work as well. The need for monopoly, why are real estate investors making it impossible to have a decent society? And that is why the paper is focusing on equity in policy formulation. Because if there are policy formulation, there are countries who practice this method. The idea of mass housing was supposed to solve this problem. But when I went to mass housing, what I was told is that, sorry, we just give the land to the developers and they buy it at really, really affordable affordable. So a 10,000 square meters of land, the allocation and design is for 200,000. That's what they paid to get the land for the 10,000 square meters of land. And so but then they said after that point, and they're able to submit a design that match, they don't go to monitor before and they don't implement. So they just give away the land. So land that you have bought for such an affordable price, why capitalize? So that's why I'm saying that we need to decommodify housing because it has an impact also on the city. Abuja is one of the fastest growing city in Africa and in the world. What we were thinking about is that we shouldn't regularize housing and let the rich continue to build on it. Meanwhile, we have people who sleep under the bridges, who sleep outside, and there are vacant houses that nobody is living in. And that's where investment-led approach comes in. Can we find a way, a policy that regulates housing, even if you build, because there's room for private partnership, there's room for private investors to work in housing, but policies that will address the social income. The government already feed itself into it by accepting to sign into the new urban agenda. That means housing becomes a part of the public responsibility. So what is our expenditure goals? These are questions that are ongoing. I don't claim to answer them here, but maybe as we continue the conversation, there are thoughts about this, but I feel like if we're looking at the African identity and we're thinking about ourselves beyond money, what is our social life? What is our individual everyday life? What is our reality? Are we happy with it? And then we just continue to do this while before we know it, the city becomes a slum like Lagos is. So these are questions that I raised. And of course, like I mentioned that there is also missing data. So we also need to invest in data. So this is still evolving. So
I want to give you a
all right, sir.
because you are a researcher.
Yes.
And I think you need to find out for yourself.
Yes.
So what that they told you is not true. How they allocate land in Abuja, you need to find out that one by yourself. Because if you allocate land genuinely to me at 200,000, it should be one. I should be the one to build it with my name. So how can you now allocate land to me and I sell the land and I'll come back and allocate another one to me?
So that's what happened.
So how will it be like that?
It's official.
And look at these people that you call government workers, these people that you call government workers that are low income earners. Find out if their hands are not in the deal
Yes, sir.
that is now affecting them negatively and you are pitying them. This is just be open to
Yes.
this.
Beyond
Alright.
taking it beyond what they told you.
Yes, because for you now to go to government to put an application for something, they will tell you how much you will bring. They will tell you who will give the money. Meanwhile, the person that is asking you to bring one is selling his own, would I say, part of the comfort that he's supposed to enjoy as a civil servant. So he has collected the money. You understand? So you will now be expecting government to come and maybe force the person that he gave his right to come and now return the right back. It is not possible. So this is let's just approach it holistically, but be very careful.
Alright. Thank you.
So now let me add before I forget. You just showed that from that your picture that I like so much. You have shown that the poor are rebelling. That even though the rich are trying to deny them access or rights to the city from very theory, right to city, that we will not go. That is why, could that be the reason why they are building those shanties in the midst of the well-developed structures? Do they have laws to justify their existence or to what they are doing?
Is that land allocated to
them?
Because you see structures on the land. Who owns the land?
Yes. And how is the state and the rich relating with them? Because
who approved that kind of structure? Because if you want to do it, government will give you approval.
Or they are fighting. So I know that there are demolitions. Suddenly people wake up, the demolition that these people are criminals, that the criminals are social insecurity that they pose.
So we take another round. Online, please can you unmute yourself and speak to the mic?
Can you hear me? Good evening. I've actually maybe listened to about 2 presentations here. Can I start from the is it Joy Obadoba? Hello?
Yes, please. Yes,
please.
can hear you.
Can you hear me, please?
Yes, can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I happen to I've been in Abuja. I've been in Abuja for over 20 years. And I have a fairly good idea about the land issues and how they operate here in Abuja. Let me even start by saying in Abuja, we don't even have the middle income earners. What we have are either you're extremely rich, the high income earners, or you have the extremely poor people, the low income earners. Right now, affordability to land in Abuja is as good as non-existent. Non-existent in the sense that the last time it was allocated was during the El Rufai government. That was when land was actually, people applied, papers were processed, and it stopped there. In the last administration under the Buhari government, the last minister did not officially, to at least openly to the public, give out land for development. What they gave out was land to estate developers. People queried, why won't you give individuals land? Now, people said it's easier to have access to maybe housing through these estate developers. But I also come to query it because I have actually approached them to see if I can actually maybe is it rent to own through a mortgage purpose, as personally. And we now discovered that the cost of these houses is not just reasonable. A 2-bedroom flat, a 3-bedroom semi-detached, you hear 60 million, 50 million. You ask yourself, as a civil servant, even if you work 35 years, can you raise that money? Non-existent. It's not just possible. It's not realistic. The kind of structures they even build, you'll be surprised that the structures are even weak. You do a lot of renovation on these same structures. Now, it might interest you to know, I don't know if you heard of during the last administration, some people actually toyed with the idea of bringing in property tax so that they can actually tax the rich. That if you call, as you rightly said, there are a lot of structures here that are empty. If you drive from the Zuba axis all through the Kubwa Express towards Mitama, you will find a lot of structures unoccupied. Jahi estates, so many of them. Who owns them? Definitely not the low-income earners. It's actually the high-income earners. Where are they? And we can trace this down, that who gets the money? Don't be surprised that Zada bank loan or mostly politicians. You build these structures. In a way, this is just my own opinion, please. This is another means of what? Money laundering. Because at the end of the day, you build these structures, you don't give them out. Even if you want to sell them, it's at ridiculous prices. So they cannot be traced. Now we move into the issue of the National Assembly, where a property tax, the bill for property tax was introduced, was actually raised, but it was quashed immediately. The whole idea was that Federal Inland Revenue Service was saying, let us tax those that live in these high-brow areas. If you live in high-brow areas, you should pay higher tax. Depends on the structure and how much the land costs. From Asokoro to Metama to Wuse to Guzape, you can name them. But everything was actually what? Stepped down. For me, I had a bitter experience along the airport road. I actually had a structure there, a plot of land waiting to be developed. Until a friend called me one day and said, do you still have land there? I said, yes. He said, please, sell off that land. And I said, why? He said, because now, indirectly, it has been revoked. I said, why revoked for? What's the process? Nobody informed me anything. The people that are there, the powers that be, had interest in that area, and they took over the land. You won't believe that as soon as I sold that land, less than 3 months, they had already cleared that place. As we speak right now, there are massive estates in that same area. So access to land is a major problem. The places you go to and you actually have easy access might be the outskirts, maybe parts of Gwagwalada. You go to the outskirts, maybe to a lot of civil servants in Abuja move to Nasarawa because they feel that, okay, it's not controlled by the FCD or FCTA. So they now journey from Nasarawa back into Abuja. So housing is a problem because one, they are not affordable. Those that have it, or the estate developers that even have these estates, they are not realistic. They will tell you cost of building materials are on the increase. So we have real issues when it comes to the issue of housing. And I listened to Mr. Daniel. I don't know what you said, Mr. Daniel. He said land is sold to multiple actors. You talked about Igoji or something. I'm not Igbo, so pardon me. You mentioned Igoji, I believe.
Yeah. Yes,
Igoji.
I don't know if I was just making reference to it, but yes, I said that.
In southwestern Nigeria, especially Lagos State, you have the Omoniles, you have Isakole. Now it is called an entitlement mentality. The question we should be asking is this: how did we get to that point? Somebody buys his land, you decide to go and harass him that you will not build. What is the government doing about it? I know I've heard of a military man that was harassed. They stopped workers. What did he do? Because he was a highly placed military man. They brought people from the barracks and they stayed there. When those boys came, they arrested some of them, they beat some of them, and they stopped coming there. Another issue now is this: where did they even spring up from? I don't know your area of coverage. I joined in late. Is it a particular state, or are you covering all the states within the southeast?
Okay.
Hello. Are you covering all the states within the southeast, or just one particular state? Because if you are going to be covering the whole of southeast, you might really have it coming. It's going to take you more time. The challenge will be much. So if you can cover maybe 1 or 2 states, it's better for you. So then how long have they been in existence? You need to even ask questions. And let me tell you, don't be surprised that the chiefs or some people, highly placed people, are behind these boys when they come operating. You arrest some of these boys, take them to the police station. Within less than 48 hours, they are back on the streets. That means something somewhere is fishy. They don't do this thing. They make returns to people somewhere. So it's going to be an Herculean task to think that we can eradicate these people. It's a cultural practice we have come to accept. But I hope you'll be able to do it and you will not be caught in the web. Thank you very much.
What the things we can do to manage the Abuja housing crisis in one sentence? what needs to be done. You just read out the crisis.
So for the researcher to now have something to work on.
Oh.
It's not the researcher and it's not an interview. So whatever we're saying here now will not be part of the research. You understand? So
Okay, just 5 minutes more. I saw you raising your hand. We talked about gender, so let's balance it.
And my question, I did not quite answer it, but I was just thinking that, it sounds like we're talking about housing as a private good, as a commercial good, versus housing as a social good, as a kind of a right. And I think underlying those two approaches is two different kind of philosophies, two different cultures, I don't know what to call it, two different ethics regarding housing. And I was on a panel earlier about traders and merchants and the history of Lagos, etc., in which the author claimed that there is something kind of intrinsic to the culture and the value system of Lagos that valorizes trade, commerce, mercantilism, things like that. And if that is like embedded in a culture and a philosophical system, like what mechanisms really would ever move it in a different kind of direction, right? Where something like a right to housing or would become, or housing as a social good, rather than a private good, would become central, would start to take a central place. I suppose I was wondering if there's like a kind of moral discourse that you also find in these places where you're doing this research that is trying to shift the culture around, like, what does it value? Does it value property and wealth, or does it value housing and, mass care for the masses, Like, are there spaces where there's a kind of counter value system, a counter ethic that is being discussed and that's being maybe in political parties, maybe in religious institutions, maybe in philosophical circles? Like, who's talking about, a counter value system that's possible in these areas where you're doing research on housing? It was a bit complicated, but I hope you pulled out something.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's really quite valid for the research, and in spite of, like I said, it's part of the research. So, okay. Okay, so we have less than 5 minutes, but we can take just 2 minutes. All right, so we go back online and listen to the chair, and then we're out from there. All right, sir. Please unmute your mic, sir. Oh, okay. We can listen to you now, sir. Prof, are you there? Professor Leke. Okay, Dr. Adams, any final words? 1 second. Mr. Oludayo, 1 second.
Okay, so
yeah.
All right, thank you very much for having us in this session. I will be glad to take this conversation forward. Free to get in touch, and I'm looking forward to strengthening this conversation. And like you said, the moral discourse. Now they are there. That is implementation about everybody doesn't want to fight, but nobody is thinking of how to step it down. So it's like, let's decide how to do it. But we know what we want. Kind of. Thank you very much.